بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So tonight بإذن الله بيقول مرجان فيما اتفق عليه الشيخان. Still in Kitab al-Hajj. Hopefully everyone is doing well. So the last chapter that we did, I think, was 50, if I'm not mistaken. And then page number 415 in the English translation, volume 1. It goes from from chapter 50. It goes from chapter 50, for those you guys can, if somebody too was hot and fresh. It goes from chapter 50 to chapter 55. Chapter 50 all the way up till chapter number 55. We've explained this before, why the book is like this sometimes, with regards to Sahih Muslim having the chapter headings placed by Imam Muslim. Excuse me, not by Imam Muslim, by An-Nawawi rahimahullah. And Imam Muslim rahimahullah, he put the kutub, the book of, the book of, the book of, the book of. And he didn't put the specific abwab, the subchapter. Within one kitab, within one book, Imam Muslim rahimahullah scientifically organized and arranged the hadiths, topically and with regards to authenticity. What's important is, different scholars who came years later after Imam Muslim, and they commented on Muslim's book or summarized Muslim's book, they themselves put the specific bab to make it easier and simpler and clearer for the reader. So, in Sahih Muslim, all of the chapters are from Nawawi, and they're not from Imam Muslim. This pertains to our class, whereas the organization of Lu'lu wal Marjan is based off of the chapter headings of Nawawi. Hadiths from Bukhari and Muslim with the order of Nawawi. So therefore, if there is a chapter and the hadith isn't in Bukhari but it's only in Muslim, Sheikh Muhammad Fawad Abdul Baqi, may Allah have mercy upon him, he's going to jump numbers and go right to where Nawawi is with Muslim along with the hadith in Bukhari. Okay, everyone understand this? That's first and foremost. Secondly, for those who have advanced studies in hadith, there are certain fiqh rulings that are placed by Nawawi according to his view and his madhab, which are not necessarily the opinion of Imam Muslim. Nawawi may say, Babu istihbabi kada. And it doesn't mean that Muslim held the view that it was only mustahab. And this is another example of one of the superior features of Sahih Bukhari over Sahih Muslim. Whereas Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala gave you everything, kitab and the bab. And Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala gives you his madhab, not every single time, but oftentimes he directly states it. So Imam al-Bukhari's book gives you more fiqh and gives you more ability and power to extract and to deduce and to get the point and how to get the point for another issue. So this is one of the reasons why Imam al-Bukhari's book is more comprehensive and is superior to Imam Muslim's book. Not just with regards to authenticity, but just from the hayth of sina'ah and how it merges between fiqh and hadith. It merges between hadith and athar. You understand? Where Imam Muslim's book, rahimahullah ta'ala, is kitab of hadith, period. Put in order the kutub of fiqh, but it's a book of hadith. And of course there are other features and there are other things that Imam Muslim, rahimahullah ta'ala, has that makes his book superior to Bukhari's book, from different aspects and from different angles. And most of the ulama, they generally agree that Imam Bukhari's book is better pound for pound. But there are features that are found in Imam Muslim's book, not found or found seldomly in Bukhari's book and others, right? From Kutub Sitta, right? So Imam Muslim, rahimahullah ta'ala, his book has many features that are better than Bukhari's book. And Imam Bukhari, vice versa. And if you had to pick one of the two, of course, the pound for pound, most comprehensive, most beneficial, most well-rounded, most useful, then of course you would take Bukhari's book. And when we talk about Kutub Sitta, as we've explained many times before, the book which is most well-rounded, pound for pound, bang for your buck, will be the book of Imam Tirmidhi, rahimahullah ta'ala, if you had to pick one. That gave you a little bit of everything, right? Khayr, inshallah. So chapter number 55, it states, Babu Tafdeel al-Halqi ala al-Taqsiri wa Jawaz al-Taqsir. Hadith ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma kana yaqulu halaqa Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam fi hajjatihi. حديث عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال اللهم ارحم المحلقين قالوا والمقصرين يا رسول الله قال اللهم ارحم المحلقين قالوا والمقصرين يا رسول الله قال والمقصرين. حديث أبي هريرة قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم اغفر للمحلقين قال والمقصرين قال اللهم اغفر للمحلقين قال وللمقصرين قالها ثلاثا قال وللمقصرين. So chapter 55 states the superiority of shaving the head over cutting short of head hair, and the permissibility to cut head hair short. Hadith number 818 is narrated by Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam got his head shaved after performing his Hajj. Hadith 819 is narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with them both. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "O Allah, be merciful to those who have got their heads shaved." The people said, "O Allah's Messenger, and those who have got their head hair cut short?" The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "O Allah, be merciful to those who got their heads shaved." The people said, "O Allah's Messenger, and those who have got their head hair cut short?" The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "And those who have had their head hair cut short." Hadith 820 is narrated Abu Hurairah, and you all be pleased with him. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "O Allah, forgive those who have got their heads shaved." The people asked, "Also those who have got their head hair cut short?" The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "O Allah, forgive those who have their heads shaved." The people said, "Also those who have got their head hair cut short." The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam invoked Allah for those who have got their heads shaved and said, "Also those who have got their head hair cut short." Fine. So this chapter is discussing something which is best and something which is inferior. It isn't best, but it's okay. And that is one of the main things to do during Hajj, especially on the 10th day, the day of the Eid, Yom al-Nahar, Yom al-Hajj al-Akbar, is to shave the head. And if you can't shave your head or you choose not to shave your head, then it's okay. It's permissible to trim your hair. So you get allergic to razor bumps, razor makes you break out, or you have doubts about the hygiene of the barbers there, or you have very nice hair, fine hair, cornrows, plaits, you have long hair you've been growing for a while, whatever the case may be, whatever your reason is, you don't have to shave your head, but it's best, it's most virtuous, it's superior to shave the head, but it's lawful to trim the head. And trimming the head or shaving the head is one of the things that you're going to do on the day of Nahar. One of the 4 things, and also one of the ways of you finishing your nusuk and coming out of the ihram state. Alright? The things that you do on that 10th day. So that's what this chapter is about. That's what this chapter is about. Now, of course, we see some issues here in the translation. And it's not about bashing anyone or finding fault in anyone. It's just, it is what it is. We see a lot of extremely difficult, well not, I don't want to say extremely difficult, but totally unnecessary style of translation. Okay? In English, you say you want your head shaved or your head cut. No one is going to understand in the English language, sit down and cut my head open. Split my skin, crack open my cranium, and cut my head. Everyone understands that the hair is going to be what? Cut. So there's no need in English to say head hair. Head hair. Those who shave their heads, those who got their heads shaved, and those who cut short their head hair. You understand? This unnecessary use of words, style, and it confuses the reader. Head hair. Of course, we're talking about the head. Shaving versus trimming or cutting. We're not talking about the arms or the armpits or the feet or the nose or the ears or the eyebrows. We're only talking about what? The head. Okay? So that's one issue here with regards to cutting the head hair. It says what? Also those who have got their head hair cut short. That's a lot. Those who trim their hair. Those who trim their heads. Easier way, simpler way, a more summarized way of putting it. Khayr inshallah. Now, obviously, shaving one's head, trimming and cutting one's head, hairstyles, they play a major role in religion, faith, spirituality, let alone customs and culture, style, trend, fashion. And oftentimes the style, the trend, the fashion is based off of the religion, the faith, and the spirituality. It's for a very long time, and it hasn't stopped to this day. Many people have shown and have manifested their devotion through the removal of hair. That's a fact. Whether it's a Buddhist monk, whether it's a Muslim Haji, okay, whether it's this Catholic, this one, that one, etc. They've taken the shaving of the head as a major sign of devotion and a major sign of sacrifice, whereas the hair, in most cases, is a sign of style and beauty and presentation of oneself. So when I shave my hair, I'm going back to a state of renouncing, relinquishing, doing without, asceticism in which I'm staying away from the hayat al-dunya and the beauty and the pomp and the glare of the hayat al-dunya. So shaving of the head has always been extremely symbolic. Whether you're in a gang or a cult or a skinhead or a Buddhist monk, whatever it is, a mohawk, etc. Shaving of the head is extremely symbolic. And one of the reasons behind it being so symbolic is that it is the removal of a major part of one's beauty and appearance. That's number one. Secondly, shaving of the head is also a major fashion trend. Many athletes, they shave their heads. Some of the most famous basketball players, boxers, baseball players have what? Shaven heads. Many professions and fields, things that people do that require the shaving of the head, whether it be the Army, the Marines, whether it be a state trooper. You ever seen a state trooper with hair before? Seldom, very seldom. In most cases, their hat is high up, what? And that's the reason behind that. Whatever that makes you think and feel, on him, there's nothing is done by accident. You guys get the point that I'm trying to make? No. So therefore, the Muslim, he shaves his head when Allah, when His Messenger tells us to do so, for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for nothing else. And anyone shaving the head for anything other than that is going to go back to fashion, trend, style, or it can go back to a prohibition. Can a man shave his head? Is it lawful for a man to wear a baldy? Can a woman shave her head? Can a woman have short hair? Can she trim her hair, etc.? If a woman's husband dies, she becomes a widow. Does she have to shave her head? Right? There are many different things that pertain to shaving, trimming, and cutting of the hair. And of course, hair being short or long has always and always will be extremely symbolic. Different indigenous peoples that were conquered and colonized by the settlers and conquerors, invaders, conquistadors, etc. Those who weren't decimated through disease and sickness, those who didn't die in gold mines, sulfur, silver mines, through working 18 hours out of a day, to the harsh treatment, those that remained, oftentimes they were forced to conform to Catholicism. They were forced to change your identity, the way you look from top to toe, everything about you. And one of the first things that was done with different indigenous populations is that the hair has to go. And long hair is a sign of savagery. Long hair is a sign of heathenism. Long hair is a sign of being wild and unkept and untamed. And short hair is a sign of God or religion or piety or civilization or refinement, etc. Read the history books, you'll find this. All right, whether it's the Chinese with the British, okay, or whether it's the Sioux, the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, right, the Lakota, right, those who were forced into different schools to adopt Christian, European values. The first thing that had to go was the what? Was the hair, right? Long hair is considered to be barbaric. Whether it's the Meiji Restoration, the top knot, right? And you go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Whenever there was that dynamic of the indigenous people versus a foreign colonizing nation, in most cases from Europe, the hair was always on the chopping board. That's a fact. And the hair has to go. And the reason why is because hair was never just what? It was never just hair, but always stood for something more than what it was. Is this not the case? The Norse invaders, huh? In other words, the Vikings. Where did they go first? Huh? I mean, huh? It was the first raid was what? Lindisfarne, right? Right? They called them heathens, and one of them, they've had what? Extremely long hair. They didn't shave their heads. The monks and the monastery had their what? The friars, right? What happened there? Right? You get the point? So Islam as well mandates and legislates the shaving of the head in certain times and in certain circumstances. And you can go on and mention 50 other examples of this principle that I just gave you, of the importance and the symbolism of what? Of hair. Leaving parts, keeping other parts, right? So the Muslim, he is to adopt this, but in light of the Islamic teachings. And that's what this chapter is about. Khairan inshallah ta'ala. So these three hadiths here mentioned in the chapter, they all prove one thing, and that is the head is to be shaven or cut during Hajj, and that the Prophet ﷺ, he gave special attention and special care. He gave a special dua for those who went the extra step of taking the full shave. So when you're making Hajj and Umrah, you finish your Umrah on the 10th day, the Yawm al-Nahar, it's best to shave the head. That's the best thing to do. Inshallah, your hair will grow back. It'll be just as beautiful. Your braids, your dreads, twists, whatever you got going on, your fro, right? Your long hair, whatever style you have, hopefully it'll grow back even more beautiful after you make that sacrifice for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right. Nawawi, may Allah have mercy on him, he says here, regarding this chapter, he says, وذكر الأحاديث في دعائه صلى الله عليه وسلم للمحلقين 3 مرات وللمقصرين مرتين. بعد ذلك هذا كله تصريح بجواز الاقتصار على أحد الأمرين، إن شاء اقتصر على الحق وإن شاء على التقصير كذا، وتصريح بتفضيل الحلق. وقد أجمع العلماء على أن الحلق أفضل من التقصير، وعلى أن التقصير يجزي، إلا ما حكاه ابن المنذر عن الحسن البصري أنه كان يقول يلزمه الحلق في أول حجته ولا يجزئه التقصير، وهذا إن صح عنه مردود للنصوص وإجماع من قبله. ومذهبنا المشهور أن الحلق أو التقصير نسك من مناسك الحج والعمرة وركن من أركانهما لا يحصل واحد منهما إلا به، وبهذا قال العلماء كافة. وللشافعي قول شاذ ضعيف أنه استباحة محظور كالطيب واللباس وليس بنسك، والصواب الأول. وأقل ما يجزي من الحلق والتقصير عند الشافعي 3 شعرات، وعند أبي حنيفة ربع الرأس، وعند أبي يوسف نصف الرأس، وعند مالك وأحمد أكثر الرأس، وعن مالك رواية عنه كل الرأس. وأجمعوا أن الأفضل حلق جميعه أو تقصير جميعه، ويستحب أن لا ينقص في التقصير عن قدر الأنملة من أطراف الشعر، فإن قصر دونها جاز لحصول اسم التقصير. والمشروع في حق النساء التقصير ويكره لهن الحلق، فلو حلقنا حصل النسك، ويقوم مقام الحلق والتقصير النتف والإحراق والقص وغير ذلك من أنواع إزالة الشعر. Nawawi, he says, these hadiths all prove the superiority of shaving and the permissibility of trimming. Number 1. The scholars of Islam unanimously agree on those points. Shaving is best, trimming is lawful. All of the scholars agree on this, except for that which is mentioned from Hassan al-Basri, rahimahullah. He said that the very first hajj that a person makes, he must shave, and he is not allowed to trim. Hassan al-Basri is quoted to have said that by Ibn al-Mundhir. No, he states, if Hassan al-Basri actually said that, if it is authentically traced back to him, then that statement is what? Rejected. This is no weight, no value, because of the text, the hadiths, and because of the ijma' of those who came before him. Once more, the 100th, 300th, 500th time we've stated this in this long explanation. This is a proof that the isolated statement of one tabi'i is not the way of the salaf. The isolated view of one sahabi is not the way of the salaf. The way of the salaf is what they agreed upon, or that which was mentioned in abundance. Several athar that were famous and popular is mentioned. The majority of them held this. Those who went against it didn't stand on anything, etc., etc. And the fahm al-salaf and the method of salaf is not taken from what? An isolated athar. Alright? That's point number one. Point number two, if that was the case, if more than one tabi'i or more than one sahabi said it, etc., etc., the proof is superior, dominant. Al-ibratu bin nas. The text is clear, right? Versus the text being unclear, or versus the sahabi who narrated the text doing something that goes against the text, such as the beard. Ibn Umar is one of the companions who narrated, don't shave the beard, don't trim the beard, let the beard grow. And Ibn Umar at the same time would trim his beard. So it's not like another sahabi doing that. Ibn Umar is the narrator of the hadith. And some scholars say this is proof that the narrator of the hadith understood it as such. And that's an argument in itself. You get the point. Khayr, inshallah. And these are all very important tools and principles for the development and for the maturity of the talib al-ilm. How to read the books of the ulama and understand, and what to take and what not to take. And how do you behave and deal with different statements, different varying views, etc. Moving forward. Nawawi, may Allah mercy upon him, he says, and our madhab, which is mashhur, meaning there are other Shafi'i views within the Shafi'i school, they say is that shaving or trimming the hair is actually a part of the worship. It's a part of Hajj, it's a part of Umrah, and it is a pillar of Hajj and Umrah. And it cannot be Hajj, it cannot be Umrah without shaving or trimming. And we mentioned this before, some scholars say that trimming the hair isn't nusuk. They say trimming the hair is istibaha, is you now having the permissibility of doing what you previously couldn't do. Like putting on cologne. I'm done this, I finished this, I made this tawaf, so I'm now out of the ihram state. Like iftar, breaking your fast, right? And most of the ulama who the view is that shaving or trimming isn't just istibaha. It's not just becoming free from the haram state, but it's actual what? Ibadah, nusuk. It's an intentional part of the rights of Hajj and the rights of Umrah. Everyone understand this or not? You guys understand the difference? It's the sunnah to do this versus it's not impermissible in the sunnah to do it. It's worship to wear this color versus it's okay to wear this color. You understand the difference? It's a huge difference between the two. Move forward. He says, and this is the view of most of the ulama, kafatan. He says, the overwhelming majority of the ulama, they have this view. Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, he has another qawl, another opinion, another time he spoke on this, which he says is shadh. It's not the dependent, it's not the opinion which is the main opinion of Nawawi. It's not his staple opinion. Shadhun da'if. This one narrated, it's not the staple Shafi'i view. Is that it's nothing more than just putting on the normal clothes or putting on cologne, so on and so forth. Obviously the correct view is the first view. Now, what's the least amount of hair that you have to shave or trim in order to implement these hadiths? and in order to perform this stage of your Hajj and your Umrah. No, he mentions the difference of opinion among the fuqaha by saying, number one, Imam Shafi'i says 3 strands of hair. 3 strands of hair. As the least, not the best, but the what? The least. 3 strands of hair. So, if a person took 3 strands of hair, little bit, clipped it, trimmed it, then that would be, he would have fulfilled that that part of his Hajj and that part of Umrah. That was what Shafi'i said. Abu Hanifa said 1/4 of the head. So divide your head into what? 4 parts. And then you shave or trim 1 part, right? Abu Yusuf, Abu Hanifa's disciple, he said nisf ras, half. Half of one's head, head here. Ibn Malik rahimahullah, and also Imam Ahmad, they said most of the head. Most, akthar ras. And Malik also said another time, kullu ras, the whole head. And of course the scholars agree unanimously is that it's best to do what? Shave all of it. But they're differing on what is the least, the minimum. Khayr inshallah, shaving it all or trimming it all. Now this is an interesting issue here. One could walk away from this argument by saying that it's permissible to shave or to trim parts of one's head, such as a fade, or brothers from the UK say a skin fade, or you may say a bald fade, however you want to word it, a taper, right? They're now saying that it's lawful during Hajj and Umrah to do what? To take some of your hair and to leave other parts of your head, right? For one thing, you learn 10,000 things. The issue of qaza. And what's the ruling on qaza? And that's FYI, that's one of the most frequently asked questions I've come across. It's on a fade. Every country, city, state I've been in, someone has asked me about that. Can I get a fade? Is it lawful for me to get a fade? Can I have this fade? Is it permissible to get this fade? That's a very, very, very popular question. Move forward. He says, and when a person is trimming their hair, they shouldn't trim anything less than the tips of one's fingers. And mula, the tip of your finger, shouldn't be less than that. And if a person does less than that, then of course that's lawful. As far as women should not shave their heads. They should only trim their hair. And it's disliked for them to shave. And for argument's sake, if a woman shaved their head on Hajj, it will be what? She will be out of the haram. It will be what? Tam al-nusuk. Her rights will be complete. So if your wife goes and she comes back to the hotel, she takes off her kima, what? MashaAllah. That's right, huh? Don't make no inkar on her, huh? Khayr inshallah. Move forward. Last but not least, he says, anything that takes the place of shaving and trimming, such as plucking, burning, cutting, etc., is also lawful. And this applies to other issues as well, the aqiqah, anything else, shaving your armpits, your fingernails, however you remove it. It doesn't have to be plucked. It doesn't have to be shaved. If you want to use cream, this remover, that remover, whatever gets it done. And the ibadah is not the ala. It isn't the tool that you use, but it is the result of the tool. Understand this? And this is another example of how Islam will be universally flexible for every time and place. They plucked, we shaved. They use this, we use that. They use wax, they use honey. Whatever it is that gets the hair what? Off of the body. Unless it is a specific hadith saying don't use wax. A specific hadith saying you have to pluck. A specific hadith saying you must use a razor, etc. And this is applicable to 50 other issues. The Arabs did this. The Arabs, they use this for that. The Arabs, doesn't mean that we have to. And also included in this is sighting of the moon. An argument that some people make is that the moon, seeing in the sky, is only one way of affirming his presence. And it doesn't necessarily mean that calendars, calculations cannot be used. That's the argument. What's important is it's no different than shaving and plucking. If the Arabs, it was their custom to pluck or to shave, a person says, well, plucking may be painful, shaving causes this harm, that harm. We have new technology, we have this, we can use that. We'll have that, right? Etc. And there are other issues in which that isn't the case. And how they did it back then remains, such as slaughtering. Such as slaughtering. The cold steel going across the throat of the animal has to be done. It's not allowed to just give them a shot or do this, which is none of that. And also, the same applies to capital punishment, right? If you saw somebody get a shot injected into their vein for killing a whole family, raping a whole family, and burning them alive after they were on death row for 20 years. They were on death row for 20 years, 15 years, right? Maybe what, 30 years? And then they put a lethal injection into their veins. They gave them their last meal. What would you like? You saw that happen to them versus this man who's convicted guilty, not in the middle of the street, not an honor killing, some nonsense or foolishness, in the courts. He was convicted guilty of murdering his family after he raped them, then he burnt their bodies, and then he was beheaded in front of everyone. What would cause more fear? What would be a greater inhibitor for that horrible crime? The peaceful injection or what? Him losing his head. There's no doubt about that. Alright? And there are other things as well. Someone's back getting flogged for fornicating or drinking or something like that in front of everyone. It's not the same as you have to pay a 500 riyal fine. It's not the same. Alright? So there's certain things which the form is maqsood, and there are other things in which the form what? Or the package isn't. But the drink on the inside. And none of this you can understand and come across unless you have the detailed knowledge. You understand this? Khayr inshallah. Alright, move forward. These hadiths state is that the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, we benefit from these hadiths, the mercy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as he made dua for his followers and his companions. These hadiths also teach us is that the one who's upon the truth is to be stubborn upon the truth until proven otherwise. Don't allow anyone or anything to shake you or to convince you otherwise until otherwise. O Allah, have mercy on those who shave their heads. Walil muqassirin, they asked him once, twice, and he said what? He made dua only for those who shaved. So the Prophet ﷺ remained upon what he knew was best, and he didn't allow the companions begging and asking for their dua. He didn't allow them to shake him. You understand this? So if you know something and you're convinced, you have the yaqeen on something, you remain upon that. Even if someone is asking you or begging you or trying to convince you otherwise. Right? And also another example of the Prophet's mercy is that he made dua for those who did something which was inferior. And that was only trimming. Right? Also, the Prophet ﷺ in his hadith with regards to Arabic language and the balagha here, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he didn't say Allahumma irham al-muqassirin, but he said walil muqassirin, and he never mentioned that part of the dua again. Similar to other texts in Quran and Sunnah, فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, right? وَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ لِدُنْيَا, right? Etc., etc. How the Prophet said it like this and he didn't say it like that. How it was left out intentionally. The superior thing was mentioned and the inferior thing what wasn't mentioned. We'll have that, right? Khayr inshallah. Moving forward. Nawawi also states, or he explains why shaving is better. He says, وَجْهُ فَضِيلَةَ الْحَلْقِ عَلَى تَقْصِيرٍ أَنَّهُ أَبْلَغُ فِي الْعِبَادَةِ وَأَدَلُّ عَلى صِدْقِ النِّيَّةِ فِي التَّذَلُّلِ لِلَّهِ تَعَالَى وَلَأَنَّ الْمُقَصِّرَ مُبْقٍ عَلى نَفْسِهِ الشَّعْرَ الَّذِي هُوَ زِينَةٌ وَالْحَاجُ مَأْمُورٌ بِتَرْكِ الزِّينَةِ بَلْ هُوَ أَشْعَثُ أَغْبَرُ وَاللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ. It explains what I said to you earlier, why shaving is better. Shaving is greater humility, and it is far from beauty and adornment. Here is adornment. The more adornment you have, the further you're away from that humble state. The hadith talks about ash'ath. You're supposed to be dusty and disheveled. Hajj is supposed to be rough. It's supposed to be a manifestation of humility for Allah. And his Hajj isn't supposed to be a fashion show. It's not supposed to be a fashion show in which you're clean and loud. It's supposed to be a little what? A little dusty, a little rough. Have more, presenting more humbleness to Allah, the Mighty and the Most High. واتفق العلماء على أن الأفضل في الحلق والتقصير أن يكون بعد رمي جمرة العقبة وبعد ذبح الهدي إن كان معه وقبل طواف الإفاضة. He says the scholars agree is that shaving the head is best after one has stoned the Aqaba Jamrah and after one has offered his sacrificial animal if he has one. And it should be done before the tawaf. So the things that you want to do on the 10th day are how many? 4. Right? They are, number 1, stoning, slaughtering, head shaving, then the tawaf. That is the order in which it should go. But if a person put this before that, then that's what? That's all right. And that's the proper understanding of the Prophet's hadith, if'al wala haraj. Not you can do whatever you want to do. And that is the ease of Islam and the facilitation of Islam. The ease and the facilitation of Islam within the boundaries of Islam. So that is the order: stoning, slaughtering, shaving, then a tawaf. Too busy, too tired, sick, wheelchair breaks, etc., etc. If'al wala haraj. You understand? Moving forward. He says, سواء كان قارنا أو مفردا. قال ابن الجهم المالكي. طيب. All right. Hey, inshallah. Stop here tonight, in the night ta'ala. And I'll try to leave some time for some questions. Allah surely knows best. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.